it might not look like it, but I like to work out. Marriage and grad school have given me a little extra kind of definition than what I used to have. But when I was in college, I worked out 7 times a week in 5 days. But I always took time off, because if you're trying to build muscle and you're trying to get in good shape, you have to allow the body to rest every now and then, or the body will not be able to get that lean, strong muscle that I wanted, because I was competing in fencing, and I wanted to be the best there was at my school, so when we compete against other schools, we would look pretty good. And it didn't hurt that also the ladies kind of liked that I was in pretty good shape back then. Thank goodness my wife likes me in the shape I am now, other than that. But I think it's very true of our own lives that we need to take breaks. We need a time to break free and renew our spirits. We get busy. We're constantly working. We have our grandkids, our kids, our brothers and sisters, moms and dads that we have to put up, and sometimes even our spouses, which I know Randy has to put up with me a lot. So I imagine some other people have the same kind of things. But we need that time renewal. And we also try to, when it comes, we think we are spending all of our time trying to build a relationship with God. We come to church, we go to Bible studies, we maybe even do a daily reading. We might listen to Christian music. We get all this effort in trying to build our relationship, and sometimes we hit these plateaus where we don't think we're growing anymore. That's the times we probably need to go away. Separate ourselves, get out of our routines, go on a spiritual retreat of some kind. Now, this is something that my seminary was really strong on as far as the care of ministers, because a lot of times we end up just, our lives are preparing sermons, preparing Bible studies, preaching, worrying about the music, and church is work to us most of the time. It's not church like it is for a lot of other people. And I was very fortunate. I went on a spiritual retreat this past week with Preetha and some of the other ministers from this area. And it was good. I really did need it, because I'm constantly trying to get my own self to grow. And I felt a lot of almost kind of dead for a long bit, because I kept trying to include the right prayers, reading books, reading scripture, trying to make sure I made our worship service a worship period time for me as well. But I hit a time period where not much was growing. But I got away. I got away from the cell phone, from the internet. I got away from daily routines. And I felt something while I was out there. I felt God trying to teach me something. And it was something I needed. And it was something that Jesus needed as well. What we just read was Jesus going out into the wilderness, and it was the time period he was going to be tempted by the devil. Now, there's a lot of argument, is this an actual devil that was trying to tempt Jesus, or was this Jesus dealing with his own kind of demons? Since he was fully human, he had his own problems, his own issues. It doesn't really matter either way. The issue is that he went away to deal with things. He didn't try to always do stuff in the middle of the crowds to take care of himself. He didn't try to do this in the synagogues or the temple. He made time to go away and deal with his issues. How many of us have struggles, maybe problems with our marriage, problems with our parents, problems with our jobs? Maybe we're not feeling we're growing spiritually. How many times we tried to deal with that with all the noise and the clutter that goes on in our lives? Part of this retreat, we started off by naming, why don't we have our spiritual routines? And our list, according to the guy who was leading this retreat, says it's exactly the same as people who attend church. We get busy with our kids, job. We forget to do things. We put it off till later. You say, oh no, I'll read the Bible right before I go to bed, or I'll pray, or I'll make that time when I get up in the morning. Then you realize you overslept, you haven't had your coffee, you forgot about that proposal you need to turn in by the end of the day. And we put God off. Sometimes we need an intentional time to step away and grow. But one of the biggest things I learned in that 24-hour period retreat was the idea that sometimes we need to let us have a time of renewal in the sense that we might not be visibly growing. Kind of like how farmers will take a time and have a field remain fallow and allow that time for the soil to rejuvenate, to get the vitamins and minerals that it needs for the plants to grow the next season. Sometimes we need that as well. Sometimes we need to lay fallow so that we may eventually have a season of planting again and growing. What are you doing in your lives to get away? Doesn't mean you have to go out to the retreat center and be out in nature and away from everything. It can be a moment of time you set aside maybe once a month where you spend 2-3 hours where you don't have those distractions, where you can allow yourself to be, to allow yourself to exist without any expectations. What are we doing as a congregation to allow ourselves to grow? How are we facilitating our relationship with God? That's what we're confronted with when we look at that scripture. Look at Jesus and how he lived his life and his spirituality. He struggled too. So don't feel guilty when you are struggling, when you feel your faith might be dead or just barely alive and barely has a pulse. Jesus struggled with it too. He got away on multiple occasions to grow strong. Even in the Garden of Gethsemane, facing death, he went away to be by himself, to pray, to find strength. And our faith needs strength so that it might continue to grow and blossom, and people can see what we do and how we live and how we exist, so they might want to have a part of that relationship with God. We invite our deacons and elders to come forward for the time of communion. Allow this table, the plate that holds the bread, the cup that holds the wine, be a chance for spiritual renewal, a retreat that we have weekly that reminds us of who Jesus is in our lives, so that we may connect with him, the Father in heaven.